Hello, hello, my friends. It's Carrie Konyha in Sedona, Arizona at holisticspsychic.com, chiming in with some intuitive insights, messages on the solar eclipse happening tomorrow. So, right now, we're less than 24 hours away from the solar eclipse happening. It happens Pacific time at 3:48 a.m. So Eastern time would be 6:48, and of course, adjust for your location in the world. This is a partial solar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the intuitive downloads that I've been getting about the energies around this eclipse, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the astrology later on. But I want to invite any of you who are tuning in, whenever you're tuning in, whether it's on the live here or later on this week, to just take a moment and drop in, do a little check in with yourself, and tune into how you're feeling in your body, because this solar eclipse and then the lunar eclipse that happens in 2 weeks is on the Scorpio Taurus axis. So it affects us on physical levels and on those sensing, feeling, energetic levels. And so, anyway, again, before I get into the astrology, I want to say that it feels to me that the biggest theme energetically around this eclipse is about soul retrieval, deep soul retrieval, a deep reclaiming of your power and energy, especially because this solar eclipse is happening in rough alignment with the south node of the moon. And then when we have the full moon lunar eclipse, it'll be with the north node. So the south node represents our past. It can represent karma. It's also our comfort zone, our sweet spot, our talent, skills, and abilities that we were born into the world with. And so because of the aspect of the south node that's connected to the past, also past lives and karma, this is a time where we are all on deep unconscious levels being prompted in the direction of bringing healing to the past, bringing healing to old karmic issues. As I mentioned in the video that I did last week about Scorpio season, it's a lot about shadow work. And so I want to talk a moment here about shadow work. So our shadow side, as many of you may know, is a term that's used to describe parts of us that we consciously or unconsciously reject, deny, disown for whatever reasons. But oftentimes there's this assumption that these parts of us that we're rejecting, denying, disowning are parts of us that either ourselves or other people judge as being undesirable or unacceptable, and that's not completely the case. A lot of times, for various reasons, circumstances within our lives, parts of ourselves that are really connected to the deepest, most authentic aspects of who we are can become a part of our shadow side. So when we do shadow work, it's not necessarily facing parts of us that we see as being unacceptable. It's about reclaiming parts of ourselves that are connected to those deepest, most expansive aspects of our true, authentic soul nature, and allowing ourselves to completely own, reconnect, embody, and express those things. Now, there's all kinds of different reasons as to why things connected to our biggest soul gifts can end up being in our shadow side. And it's not necessary really to go into a big delving into the reasons why. It's just recognizing, oh, this is a part of myself that's been dormant. This is a part of myself that's important to me that I've been putting on the back burner. And so, what I mean by this eclipse bringing us into a time of deep soul reclaiming, soul retrieving, is along these lines, reclaiming parts of ourselves that have been dormant, unexpressed, hiding out in the background of us for whatever reasons. So pay attention to, what you have naturally been feeling kind of prompted towards in your life right now, because whether we're aware of the energies that are happening cosmically or not, we're still affected by them, and they influence our psyche, they influence our bodies. For example, I was speaking with a client of mine earlier today about this. The most significant cosmic energies that are connected to this particular eclipse, of course, is the sun and the moon. Venus, because Venus is aligned with the sun and the moon right now. And we're also dealing with Scorpio energies. And so these zodiac signs, the Scorpio Taurus axis, the Venetian emphasis, all of these energies collectively are very connected to the root chakra and the sacral plexus chakra, the second chakra, as far as our energy anatomy is concerned. Astrologically speaking, the root chakra is connected to both Taurus and Scorpio, and the sacral plexus chakra is Venus and the moon. And so we've got all of that going on. And so for me, I'm noticing that I'm literally feeling way more dropped in to my lower two chakras than I usually do, in a way that feels good. It feels like, excuse me, it feels like I've just taken a big sigh of relief or something, and I'm naturally feeling more dropped in to my lower two chakras. So pay attention to if you're feeling that or not. Now, of course, the prominence of Venus energies and Scorpio energies in your chart are going to be a factor in how much or not you're feeling the energies of this. But for me, in my natal chart, my Neptune is in Scorpio. And so that gives me, it's one of the things in my chart that lend itself to being deeply intuitive on a sensing feeling level. And I'm super energetically dialed in and sensitive. And I literally can feel that opening, that awakening, that feeling of a return to empowerment that's happening in these lower two chakras. So this lower two chakra theme that's connected to the solar eclipse is one that's collective. We're all experiencing this on varying degrees. So what are the themes that are connected to the lower two chakras? Root chakra is earth energy, so it has to do with our physical body, our physical environment, anything that is connected to our feeling of safety, security, and stability in the world. And so if we're looking at transmutation that's connected to the eclipse energy and the Scorpio energy, it could look like working on a level of optimizing your literal physical health, your physical environment. And then as I'm on that, with the Venus energies kicking in, Venus is about love, harmony, beauty, creativity, which are connected to the second chakra themes. However, with both of these chakras being highlighted, we might feel compelled to do things like changing something with our physical appearance, changing something with the appearance of our physical environment, bringing more of a feeling of beauty in our lives, a feeling of harmony in our lives. Second chakra issues are also around our sense of emotional well being, it's creativity. And so when we tie this back to the fact that this is a South Node eclipse and the healing dynamic that wants to happen, basically what's going on is what we're all feeling unconsciously compelled to do is clear away, bring to completion, release, purge, clear, cleanse anything that's obstructing us or holding us back in embodying our truest, most authentic selves, our truest, most authentic path, our truest, most authentic soul gifts. Anything that's been hindering that at all, anything, and I've been talking about this for a few weeks as we've been building up to this, but it's like really kind of peaking out now. Anything that is at all obstructing you in being able to rise into what you feel completely compelled to rise into now are the things that are either being brought to completion or shifting in some way, shape, or form. Now, because Venus is in the mix, there's going to be relationship themes that are connected to this. And because we're so close to the eclipse, these themes are already arising within us somewhere, consciously or unconsciously. But what I want to say here is that, with the relationship themes that are coming up, it definitely means shifts of dynamics. That doesn't necessarily mean that every important relationship in your life, obviously, is going to come to an end. But this eclipse contains or brings an energy that supports us in making positive shifts with, it could be relationships that have served their purpose and we're moving on from, but it can also be old toxic patterns. And that's what I really want to share here. Old patterns of relating or dynamics that have run their course that aren't serving us anymore. Those types of things can shift for the positive as well. So be aware of that. What else do I want to talk about here? I'm just tuning in for a second. So obviously the energies are really transformative. Scorpio season every year is a time of transformation because that's the nature of the Scorpio energy. The nature of eclipse energies are transformative. Eclipses basically serve to illuminate our awareness in ways that are connected to truths that maybe have evaded us that we're ready to see now, things that have been hanging out on the unconscious coming to the conscious awareness. And the other thing I want to say about this is that typically whatever energies are illuminated or activated during an eclipse season have a tendency to play themselves out for like this next 6 months or so, basically until the next eclipse season happens. So it's not like, okay, this is going to be a day or two of shifting and that's it. No, this is like activating an energy that's going to be like a thread of theme that weaves through your next many months. Now, that reminds me, as we're talking about this, in regard to indigenous sacred feminine wisdom teachings here in the Southwestern United States, each new moon, which this solar eclipse is coming with a new moon, each new moon has different medicine teachings that come with it, different wisdom teachings, sacred teachings that support our growth. And the new moon that happens in October sometimes is called Weaves the Web, which is a lot about harnessing the power of our creativity. It can literally be working with your hands, channeling creative inspiration through you conscientiously, consciously, in ways that are paving a positive road forward for yourself in the best way that you possibly can based on your point of view, your perception, your abilities in the now. And so this obviously can mean in a lot of different ways. Here in the Southwest, this is the time of year where the native crafts people start working on creating their crafts, building up their inventory, and then they sell them all spring, summer, fall. And so we're doing that on an energy level. We're harnessing the power of our creative inspiration, following that inspiration to create however we feel guided to create, which doesn't have to be arts and crafts. In this day and age, it can be digital forms of creativity, digital products, digital offerings, all kinds of things. But it's about having like being able to see the long view, right? And what can I, how can I harness the power of my creative inspiration now to put positive energy into my bigger picture view? So that's a part of what's birthing, which is going to be more connected to the lunar eclipse that we have in 2 weeks from now when we have the full moon. And so it feels like the solar eclipse on the new moon, it already is prompting us, okay, clearing away whatever's standing in your way of fully living the quality of life, lifestyle, way of being that you want to be. And then as we're coming into the new moon, or I'm sorry, the full moon, lunar eclipse, there's going to be even more of a sense of awareness around that. And there was something else I wanted to say about these energies. One thing that you can do is look to see where the Scorpio sector of your natal chart is, and that will give you more insight as to exactly how it's working for you. For instance, I'll share that my Neptune in Scorpio is in my 8th house. And every Scorpio season, my whole life, has always been very transformative. And what I've noticed, and you'll know why I'm sharing this with you in a moment, is if I have been living in alignment throughout the year, then that culminates in what I experience as some type of positive manifestation transformation. But if I have not been living in alignment, it doesn't really happen so much these days because I'm a lot more aware than I was obviously when I was a teenager. But when I was in my teens, early 20s, I used to say, and I would even tell people, something bad always happens to me every Halloween, which of course is Scorpio season. But in retrospect, I could see where I would have difficult or challenging transformative times if I was going into Scorpio season not being completely aligned. So this is something that you all might want to have a little check-in with yourself around. Where am I honestly in my overall feeling of mind, body, spirit alignment? The more harmonized you can move into this energy, the more beneficial or more of a sense of ease or support you're going to feel as you're moving through this process. But if you're coming into these energies sort of out of sorts, glitchy, discombobulated energetically, it's not the end of the world. In fact, it's a good awareness for you to have, noticing where you're out of alignment, but it might feel like a little bit of more of a bumpy ride for you. But then knowing that really in the big picture, this is the universe, this is the divine intelligence in the universe efforting to support you in the direction of realigning. And ultimately, that is a big part of what the eclipse seasons do for us. They serve, again, to illuminate our awareness and help us to attune, more finely attune our alignment with ourselves so that we can allow life to express and flow through us, so we can be clear conduits of how life wants to express through us. And this is particularly important for those of us who are on that path of spiritual awakening, awareness. For those of you who are what I call evolutionary souls, you were born into the world with a deep sense of calling to support collective evolution in humanity, evolution of consciousness, awareness, right? So if you're one of those people, then we definitely feel it, I think, a little bit more because, you know, we're aware of what our intention is to support evolution. And it's like we're held more accountable for that because of our own commitment that we've already intended, whether we've done that consciously or unconsciously. And the universe has a way of keeping us on track along those lines. So, astrologically speaking, as I briefly mentioned, well, first let me say this. There's a strong, the water element is strong in the chart, the astrology chart around the solar eclipse. So that does make us feel a little bit more tapped into our intuition. It can also make us feel a little bit moody emotionally, but being aware of that ahead of time helps you to work through it more consciously, tending to your self care a little bit more. It can be a time, I spoke with somebody about this today as well, where we could feel a little bit psychosomatic if we have any type of emotional strain. It could leave us feeling physically not feeling well. That's like a component that happens with this type of energy at times. But there's also a prominence of fixed energy with the signs, right? So we have the cardinal, which are initiating energies. We have fixed signs, which can be a little bit ingrained or maybe even a little bit, you can say established or stubborn. And then the mutable signs, which are changeable. So there's a big fixed element in this chart, which the reason I want to bring this up is because, again, when we know this, we can work with it consciously. Pay attention to where you might be feeling stubborn for some reason, where you might be digging your heels in some capacity of your life or another, and ask yourself, is this serving me? Like, why am I doing this? What is the reason behind me digging my heels in or not being cooperative or being stubborn or not wanting to budge or grow? Asking yourself the reason for things is a really good way to get to the root of the motivating cause, obviously. And you want to work towards your reasons for things being high vibration reasons, not ego based reasons or fear or worry or anything like that. So we also have the sun, the moon, and Venus all in alignment. So I talked about this already, and I talked about it last week because it was coming into this alignment, all in Scorpio. So moon in Scorpio, again, makes us more in touch with our emotions, more intuitive. The sun in Scorpio can bring in interesting compellings to explore things that have to do with the sacred mysteries in life. It compels us to explore things having to do with our transformation, even transforming our physical appearance, as I said, especially with Venus there. Venus in Scorpio is not its most empowered placement. But a good use of the energy is turning in towards your self-love. A few other things I want to talk about the astrology aspect here. We have the, where is it? Doo-doo-doo. The moon is opposite of Jupiter. Is that right? And actually, it's like a quincunx, which is a conundrum type of energy. So, Jupiter right now is preparing to go back into Pisces. It's been in Aries. And so, this is where we get that reset energy. The reason it's a reset is because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac and Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, growth, good fortune. It's been retrograde, which brings us into an inner journey of discovery of what brings us into expansion. So, Jupiter retrograding back into Pisces now wants us to, or inspires us to revisit what brings soulful meaning and purpose to your path. And so that's something that's good for us to be consciously reflecting upon during this time so that we can really harness the energy to make big leaps forward on our path. We've had a lot going on all year astrologically that in many ways has brought in unexpected delay type of energy or postponement energy. But I'm seeing it as sort of like a slingshot, like we've all been kind of pulling back, pulling back, pulling back. And that pullback, especially with all those planets we've had retrograde, it's a lot of reassessing and reevaluating going on. But if we work with that consciously and we do the reassessing and we do the reevaluating, then boom, as planets are moving forward, then we move forward in almost like a catapulted or expedited type of way. So going back to sharing about my natal Neptune and Scorpio in the eighth house, that house is also about taxes. It's about other people's money. And just to sort of make a point here as how uncannily astrology works, I just paid a bunch of taxes. I'm getting ready to, I'm having little financial wheeling and dealings going on with my new office space that I'm moving into this coming week on November 1st, which I'm super psyched about. I can't wait for you guys to see my new space. I'll definitely, show you when I'm ready to completely move in. But so all of the things that are connected to the Scorpio sector of my chart are definitely happening. So if you have your natal chart, just look to see where you have planets in Scorpio and look to see what house that is in. And then you can learn, what does that house represent? What do these planets represent? Even if you don't have any planets in Scorpio, you still are going to have a Scorpio sector of your chart. You're still going to have a house that Scorpio is ruling. And so you can just look at that. So, anyway, I feel like there's a few other things I wanted to talk about with some of these aspects here. So, Mars, I want to talk about Mars because Mars and Pluto are co rulers of Scorpio. And Mars is making a trine right now, beneficial aspects to the sun, the moon, Mercury, and Venus. In fact, we still have that grand trine energy that I talked about last week. If you missed that video about Scorpio season, it's still up on my channel. You can check that out. So trines are beneficial aspects that harmonize us. So even though we've got some things that are being sort of triggered, so to speak, that show us where we want to release, where we want to heal, overall, there is an energy that supports us in being able to move through it in graceful, harmonious ways. Mars right now is in Gemini, which is a lot about communication, but it's also connected to playfulness. So one of the things that I'm seeing here, and it's a lot for me to say this as a Capricorn. I'm a Capricorn. My son's in Capricorn. But with Mars in Gemini, like, don't be afraid to be in your playfulness right now, right? Like sometimes we don't always have to be so sluggish and heavy with these energies. Being in your playfulness can be good medicine right now. Laughter, involving yourself with activities that make you laugh, watching things on the internet or TV that make you laugh. Being in your playfulness is a really good sort of antidote to some of these heavier energies that are coming on right now. And being in your playfulness, being in your genius, being in your outside of the box type thinking is definitely going to be to the benefit of all of us collectively right now. And then as we were talking about Pluto, Pluto is squaring the moon. So Pluto is about transformation. And we know that the moon is, in Scorpio. And so transforming old emotions is a big part of what's coming up. And so I'm going to say this. And if you've watched any of my other videos that are connected to personal growth empowerment practices, I do talk a lot about this because this is a practice, a modality that I use a lot in my own life for my own healing, and one that I guide clients through. The way we feel, our emotions, are largely connected to what we're thinking. So in order to heal old emotional wounds, one approach we can take is reframing the way we are looking at or perceiving or thinking about those old things. And I'm just going to share with you quickly here a little practice that you can work with. You fill in the blank. The reason I feel fill in the blank is because I believe fill in the blank. And then you ask yourself if what you're believing is actually factually really true, or if it's a projection or an assumption. And then from there, you keep, going down the rabbit hole with it until you get to a space where you can come to an awareness that's based on actual factual truth, not assumptions, not projections, not expectations. And then that reframing enables the emotional component to shift, heal, and integrate as well. So there's that. I want to pull at least one tarot card. So this deck is a vintage deck. This is the original vintage version of the World Spirit Tarot by Lauren O'Leary. And I've had this deck, I think I bought it in, I was going to say 2020, but I mean like the year 2000. I bought this in the year 2000 or 2001. It's one of my favorite decks. I work with it a lot. And the reason I like it is because the symbolism sticks pretty close to the traditional Rider-Waite deck. And I love the Rider-Waite deck. For any of you who are studying the tarot or you want to study the tarot, learning first on the Rider-Waite deck is important because it's one of the most classic decks that there are. And pretty much every other deck out there, whether it's a tarot deck or an oracle deck, is somehow inspired by the Rider-Waite. So anyway, that's why I like this deck. It follows the symbolism of the Rider-Waite deck pretty closely, but in its own unique way. So I'm going to start by just picking one card for now. If we were going to pick only one card that can give us some additional awareness, insight, illumination about the energy of this eclipse and or how to work with it, let's see what that card would be. By the way, I hope that this is streaming clearly. I'm on my laptop today and using just the webcam that's built into my laptop, so I hope it's coming through okay. Okay. Ba-ba-da. Two cards came out, and it's the Queen of Pentacles. They're called Sibyls in this deck. The Queen of Pentacles, which I'll talk about in a moment, and the Eight of Pentacles. So Earth energy, which is going to be really connected to the lunar eclipse that we have in 2 weeks, which is going to be connected to Taurus and the North Node in Taurus. So I feel like this is ultimately a strong message about fully embracing and fully being involved with, not exactly right now, but on the other side of this eclipse energy, it's like getting busy with it, right? Like we're like, okay, I'm on my game. I know what I'm doing. This is what my intention is. This is what my inspiration is. This is what my ambition is. I'm honing, embodying, honoring, and having trust and confidence in the natural talent, skills, and abilities that I have to be able to fully create, experience, or manifest what I'm envisioning as being my highest and best timeline reality. The Queen of Pentacles speaks of a person who's multifaceted in their talents and abilities, has the capacity, not only the capacity, but has an actual talent for flourishing in creating prosperity and abundance. And I don't mean just financially, prosperity and abundance in the way of physical health and well being, fulfillment, sense of purpose, accomplishment, achievement that comes from living in alignment with your soul path, with your highest path. And then the Eight of Pentacles is the energy of extreme fulfillment in how you're allowing life to channel through you. Not placing, not being in your restriction. When you allow life force energy to channel through you, if you look at yourself as being a conduit for however life wants to channel through you, and you don't have any form of clenching or resistance in your body, then what you find is waking up every day and can't wait to live my day because I'm in my flow and I love how I'm being used as an instrument for the divine. That's like on a bigger esoteric level. On a mundane level, this is the energy of further refining skills. Maybe, if you're a person who some of those skills have been dormant in your shadow side, then getting back in the saddle with them and refining them so that you can utilize them as the instrument and tool that they were meant to be used for you in your life. Some of us may be shifting into mentoring roles as well. This card literally came up for at least 2 of my clients today, this exact card. And so when this card comes up, you can be the person who's honing your skills through repetition, or you can be the person who's mentoring, right? So ask yourself how that's showing up. And it can be a little bit of both. Why not? So as this relates to how to work with the eclipse energy, harness the power of the eclipse energy to get back in your saddle, however that means to you, whatever that means to you, and be ready to sort of quantum leap forward into manifested fulfillment. However you're creating that for yourself. For me, it's my new healing center that I'm about to create and all of the things that are going to be connected to that. I'm planning on definitely getting back on track with group retreats this coming year, which I've taken a 2 years break from because of COVID stuff. I'm getting back on track with that. I'm going to have all kinds of online courses. And that reminds me, before I kind of wind it up here, this Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, I'm doing an interview with, I'm being interviewed with my friend Todd Medina from the Sology Network. If any of you follow Sology Studios, if not, I'll put the link once I get off here. I'll put some links in the comment section below or in the description on his YouTube channel. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. We'll see what comes up, but thought you all might want the early heads up on that. It's going to be live, but it'll remain on his channel after that as well. And he's got the channel here on YouTube and then also on Facebook. So I'll put some links below. I'm also going to link some of the videos that I have about shadow work. I linked a few of them. Excuse me, I linked a few of them to the video on Scorpio season that I made last week, but not all of them. I've got like 4 or 5 videos on shadow work. And again, look at shadow work as I'm reclaiming me. I'm reclaiming parts of myself that I've stuffed down, parts of myself that I've given away, energy I've given away. I'm reclaiming energy that has been taken from me with or without my permission, regardless of the karmic reason. You know, the South Node energy connected to this eclipse is a lot about healing karma as well, which is possible, by the way, right? We can bring karma to healing. On the yogic perspective of that, the way to heal karma is to consciously become aware of what the lesson has been about, learn the lesson, and change the behavior that created the karma to begin with. That's all you have to do. We don't have to be guilty. We don't have to beat ourselves up. We don't have to hold ourselves in suffering at all. It's just like, oops, been there, done that, learned the lesson, not going to do it again. Right? So, anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here, guys, just because I feel like this is getting a little bit long. But I'm going to be excited to see you all around the corner in the next video. As soon as I get situated in my new office space, I'm going to go up to doing 2 videos a week. I'll do my energy update like I always do. And then I'm going to get back on track with doing an additional video per week that has something to do with personal growth, empowerment practices based on whatever the energies are that are going on in any given week. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate your presence here on my channel. All my love to you. Blessings. Namaste. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.